Donald Trump and Xi Jinping are sitting across from each other in Beijing right now in what might be the most consequential two-day summit of this century. The Iran war is in its third month, the Strait of Hormuz is being choked off by Iranian forces, oil prices are surging globally, and Taiwan's future could be shaped by what's said, or crucially, what IS said, behind closed doors. The Trump administration says it doesn't need congressional approval to restart Iran strikes, while Michigan lawmakers are pushing to ban Chinese vehicles from American markets entirely. The stakes simply could not be higher. Joining me now are James Chen, our geopolitical analyst, and Elena Vasquez, our Europe and EU analyst. James, let me start with you. Is Donald Trump walking into Beijing from a position of genuine strength, or is Xi Jinping holding more cards than Washington wants to admit?
Thanks, Emma. Look, the answer is absolutely. Trump is walking in from a position of strength, and here's why that matters. Iran is 3 months into a military conflict with the United States, and its forces are still blockading the Strait of Hormuz, yes, but they are doing so from a position of degraded military capability, not strength. Trump told the world this week that Xi could help broker an Iran deal, but that America doesn't need it. That's not bluster. That's a negotiating posture built on demonstrated military will. Hegseth has made clear that Congress doesn't constrain the president's ability to restart strikes. And Beijing knows it. Xi is sitting across from a man who has already pulled the trigger once, and that changes the entire calculus. Douglas Murray has written for years about how the West's failure to project credible force is what emboldens authoritarian regimes. Well, Trump has spent 3 months proving Murray right in reverse. The risk, though, is Taiwan. If Trump trades ambiguity on Taiwan for Xi's help on Iran, we will have bought a temporary Persian Gulf solution at the cost of a long-term civilizational catastrophe.
But James, isn't that exactly what pragmatic diplomacy requires? Sometimes you have to give something to get something. Beijing isn't going to hand Trump an Iran solution and open agricultural markets and release Jimmy Lai all for nothing. And Elena, what's your take on this?
Well, look, James is right about strength, but I think he's underestimating the economic dimension here, and that's where the real leverage actually sits. Here's what I think James is missing. China's economy is under serious domestic strain right now. Their property sector is still in crisis, youth unemployment is stubbornly high, and the export-led growth model is being squeezed by exactly the kind of tariff pressure and decoupling legislation we're seeing from American lawmakers. Senator Schmidt is absolutely right to push for genuine decoupling, not just de-risking. The bipartisan bill targeting Chinese-connected vehicles is precisely the kind of structural pressure that changes Beijing's cost-benefit calculation. The data shows China accounts for 60% of global electric vehicle production, largely on illegal state subsidies. That's not a trade dispute, that's an economic security threat. Xi needs a trade deal more than Trump does right now, and if Trump uses that leverage intelligently, he doesn't have to give away Taiwan to get what he wants on Iran and agriculture.
I hear what Elena is saying, but with respect, that misses the point entirely. Economic leverage is real, but Xi Jinping does not run a government that responds to economic pain the way a democratic leader does. He doesn't face elections. He doesn't face a restless middle class that can vote him out. The CCP has shown time and again that it will absorb enormous economic punishment. Look at the COVID-era isolation. Look at the Australian trade war, rather than be seen to capitulate to Western pressure. Taiwan is existential to Xi's political identity and domestic legitimacy. You cannot trade off on Taiwan with economic carrots. What history tells us is that every time a Western leader has offered Beijing ambiguous language on Taiwan in exchange for something else, Beijing has pocketed the ambiguity and delivered nothing of substance. Nothing. That is the pattern. That is the record.
Here's what I want to know. David Sachs from the Council on Foreign Relations said this week that Trump could change U.S. policy on Taiwan completely, and Congress has very limited ability to stop him. Is that the real threat here? Not what Xi does, but what Trump concedes. Elena, where do you see this playing out?
The way I see this playing out, the most likely outcome in the next 90 days is a summit that produces impressive-sounding communiques with just enough ambiguity on Taiwan to alarm Taipei without quite crossing any formal red lines. Watch the language carefully. if the final joint statement omits the traditional formulation about opposing unilateral changes to Taiwan's status, that's not a footnote, that's a seismic shift. Trump is transactional by nature, and the pressure to deliver an Iran resolution before Persian Gulf oil disruption causes a full recession is enormous. The real risk here is that the economic pain from the Strait of Hormuz blockade becomes the argument for giving Xi something he shouldn't get.
Here's what concerns me most. Jimmy Lai. National Review is absolutely right to press this point. Lai is a pro-democracy publisher rotting in a Hong Kong prison because he believed in everything America claims to stand for. If Trump leaves Beijing without even publicly raising Lai's case, it tells every dissident in every authoritarian country that American values are negotiable when there's a trade deal on the table. That's not just a moral failure. That is a strategic failure. Because the soft power America loses every time it abandons someone like Jimmy Lai takes decades to rebuild. And we're going to need every ounce of that soft power in the coming confrontation with Beijing over Taiwan. Senator Chris Murphy claiming that Trump has made Iran stronger is laughable. But what would genuinely make America weaker is selling out a free press martyr for soybean market access.
Gentlemen and Elena, this has been extraordinary. A 2-day summit that could reshape the Persian Gulf, Taiwan's future, and the global technology economy. And somewhere in a Beijing prison, Jimmy Lai is waiting to find out if American principles survived the meeting. One thing is certain. Whatever comes out of that room, Xi Jinping already knows exactly what he walked in wanting. And the question is whether Donald Trump does too.